Hi, I'm Don from DonDronesOn. I've been reporting my experience with Starlink every month since I received and installed the dish at my cottage in March of 2021. And I would say the magical word for this month of October is consistency. Let's check it out. Before I get into the numbers, let's talk about my gut feel for this system. Very simple. It is definitely getting better and more consistent. In the summer, during work calls using MS Teams, I was always kind of on edge, fearing the next dropout. I knew it was coming, and I didn't know when or for how long. This month, I was totally comfortable and confident. Sure, I figured there might be a dropout, but they seemed to be very few and far between, and only for a second or two. A much better feeling, believe me. Did my statistical tracking confirm this? It sure did. My first metric counts the number of outage events I experience per hour. An outage event is an outage long enough to have an impact on an MS Teams call, which corresponds to outages listed as over 10 seconds on the Starlink app. October was the best month so far, and 4 times better than September. 0.6 outages per hour. That means that if I'm in a meeting for an hour, I have about a 40% chance of no outages and a 60% chance of 1-2 second-ish dropout, which is pretty good. That said, I did hold one meeting where I had 3 of these outages in a row, which could have been pretty nasty in an important meeting, but fortunately it was no big deal. And by the way, none of these outages ever affect streaming Netflix or YouTube videos. Buffering takes care of everything other than very long outages. These short outages really only affect real-time voice or video communications. My second metric is the total number of outage minutes per day, really a measure of total downtime. October came in at 5.9 minutes per day. Pretty good, but mysteriously much worse than September. And frankly, it makes me wonder if the September app statistics were correct. We'll keep an eye on this in November. So for these 2 metrics, outages are becoming less and less of a problem. And that's probably attributable to 3 things. First of all, compared to earlier in the year, there are definitely more satellites in position and operational. Even though there was a long pause in the SpaceX launches, the satellites already in orbit have been settling into the overall web, meaning that at any given time, anywhere from 2 to 10 satellites are potentially visible at my location. Now, there's been a lot of hype about the new version of the Starlink satellites with the laser linkages. The laser link between satellites is supposed to address the problem of a satellite not having connection with a ground station, which will be great for users near the poles or other areas with few or no visible ground stations. Basically, the link bounces from satellite to satellite until it hits one where there is a ground station visible. But for me, I don't think these new lasers will have a big impact, ever. I only occasionally see an outage attributed to being unable to connect to a ground station. Certainly more northerly reaches of Canada, and of course other parts of the world without ground station installations would certainly benefit from this technology, but not me. And of course, they'll only benefit once enough laser-equipped satellites are actually in orbit and in service. Okay, the second reason for better outage performance is improved switching software. By this I mean the ability for the dish to detect an obstruction and quickly switch to an alternate satellite. They announced this capability in July, and things have definitely improved. And there's been a lot of software upgrades since then, so I assume they've made it even better. And since the dish knows where existing obstacles are, I sure hope it doesn't even try to connect to a satellite while it's in a red obstructed zone. Finally, well, maybe it's the fact that it's October and my trees are losing a lot of leaves. The obstructed area, particularly on my west side, is looking a bit smaller on the app. Well, maybe, it's kind of hard to tell. I do still have lots of coniferous trees though, pine, hemlock, and cedar, so even in the dead of winter, they will be happily obstructing me. That's a snapshot of the obstruction viewer in September on the left and October on the right. By the way, the viewer and statistics screens on the web have been updated now, and they look the same as on the mobile app. Except, oops, on the web version, have a look at that. They've accidentally reversed east and west, or the labels anyway. That's very odd. I don't know how they did that. Okay, let's move on to speed and latency. Wow, download speed is now a whopping 152 megabits per second down on average. The highest I've seen since I've started keeping these metrics. Upload speed is still bumping along at a respectable 10 megabits per second, and ping or latency is pretty steady at 55 milliseconds. But here's the real story. Remember in September I showed this histogram of download speed measurements? The candles on the graph show the number of times a speed measurement fell in a particular range, 0 to 50 megs, 50 to 100 megs, and so on. The September histogram shows what I would call an unpredictable system. You're pretty much as likely to get a speed of 175 megs as you are 40 or 80 or 125. It's all over the map. But now look at October, a completely different shape of histogram with a sharp peak in the 150 to 200 range. This shows a system that is stabilizing and becoming much more predictable and, you guessed it, consistent, which is fantastic. The average download speed was 152, like I said. The mean was 141. The lowest I saw in October was 39 meg, and the highest was 268 megabits per second. This change from pretty much random speeds to a much more centered system. Here's a side-by-side view. This indicates to me that the Starlink folks are getting this beast under control, and that's probably why they said they'd be leaving beta in October. Okay, I'm recording this on October the 27th, and I haven't seen an official statement yet, but it may be here any second now. Okay, that's it for October, and the story, like I said, is consistency. More consistent outage performance and much more consistent speeds. Thanks for watching. See you next time.